Here are some signs that a snake might be in your room, in your compound, your surrounding. It is no longer news that the singer Ifnia was unalived by a snake in her room. This has been a very terrifying, horrifying news for a lot of people. For me, especially because that would have also been my story. You heard right. The year was 2016, University of Nigeria on Soka, behind BC's Lodge, where I used to live. I found the biggest snake and the longest snake that I have ever seen, close to 15 feet in length, in my room. I live to tell the tale because God was merciful and because I observed these signs, and that made me alert, throughout that period. So here are things you might notice and you should begin to suspect that a snake might be somewhere in your room. So I lived downstairs, and this area had overgrown bushes, abandoned lands and all of that. But then I hardly had rats in my room, and I thought this was a very good thing. And also, I used to have 1 or 2 cockroaches now and then, right? But suddenly I saw a whole lot of cockroaches on my ceiling in my bathroom, right? A whole lot of them. This got me really worried, and I kept on thinking, where are these cockroaches coming from? And the major issue, no matter how I tried to bring them down, they wouldn't budge. They wouldn't come down. They would just remain there, right? They would run and they would remain there. This made me feel that something was really chasing them out of the seaweed, and they were running for their lives, right? So, and why would they be running for their lives if not that a predator was somewhere around the corner? I took notice of that, and that made me very, very careful during that time. I also observed that there was a foul smell in my bathroom. There was a very foul smell in my bathroom. I couldn't just place what this foul smell was, but there was a smell, and I kept wondering. I was literally scared in my spirit, and I sort of likened that to the smell of death. And I was so worried in my spirit. It was actually the snake, right? Snakes actually have a smell, a very foul smell, that while you might not hear them creep and all of that, you probably would notice if they are around you. You might also begin to hear creepy sounds. For instance, when they are trying to slither, you might not hear them move, but because they are in a very unfamiliar space, your room or your neighborhood or your compound or your stuff, right? They might slither into something. They might, crash into something, and you sort of hear sounds, sudden sounds and all of that. Another thing that I observed during that time was that my toilet wouldn't flush properly, or my toilet had the illusion of not flushing properly. So, when I pour in a bucket of water into my toilet, I'll feel some bubbling and bubbling as though something were stuck in there, right? And it didn't make sense to me because half of the time I would just literally pee and I'm trying to flush, and then stuff is bubbling and bubbling and bubbling. It was the snake trying to resist the water and struggling with the buckets of water that I was pouring in there. That was how the bubbling and all of that was happening. Another thing you might look out for is droppings around you. Everything is not war gecko and rat dropping all the time or lizard dropping all the time. Sometimes if this dropping looks very strange to you, look at it very well. If it looks strange to you, it might actually be from a snake. When you observe any of these, try as much as possible to go check your plumbing, go check your toilet pipes, especially those ones outside that are not cemented. Go check on them. They might be broken. If they are broken, these things coming from there, right? Check. And be sure you're safe. Be sure there is no unnecessary opening leading into your home. The one that came into my room came into a broken pipe in my toilet, at the back of my toilet, right? So these things happen, and check on these things. Be sure your spaces, try to be very cautious of your space. We can only be too careful, but then again, we have to be very cautious of our spaces. And if you notice any of these things, don't sit around and wait around. Try to get fumigation for your environment, for your home. Fumigate as often as possible. These are some of the signs, and we have to just be very careful, and do our path, and then allow God and the universe to take care of us. This is not one of those videos that you'll be like you don't want to share. Send this to your kids. If you have children in the university, people who are beginning to live on their own, young people, tell them to be very cautious. Tell them to look out, to be sensitive, to be careful, to observe their environment. I'm only able to be here and talk about this, and you are only able to see my face today and know me because The Lord was merciful, number one, and also because I paid attention and I was so alert. Maybe not see evil, maybe not know evil, and may the Lord rest the soul of Ifunanya.